Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Glad to be joined by my friend, Representative Greg Casar from the House of Representatives. We are introducing legislation today entitled Banning Event Training on Sensitive Operations and Federal Functions, the Bets Off Act. This is long overdue legislation which would prohibit these prediction markets.
Two Democratic lawmakers, Senator Chris Murphy and Congressman Greg Casar, say America has a new corruption problem, prediction markets that let people wager on government actions, including war. They're calling it fundamentally corrupt because if someone inside government knows what's about to happen, the market stops being a prediction and starts being a payday. Today, we're breaking down the claims, the receipts, and the bill they just introduced to shut this down.
Fundamentally corrupt markets. They are rife with insider trading, and they offer incredibly perverse incentives, especially inside government, for government actors to push official decision-making towards their financial interests. I want to give you maybe the most stark example of why this legislation is necessary. Right before the U.S. attacks on Iran, there was a flurry of activity on Polymarket. In fact, the day before the strikes began, there was a series of very specific bets that were made. These bets guessed, put money down on the United States attacking Iran the following day. Now, this was not a frequent bet that was made on Polymarket. It was, in fact, a very exceptional day where there were many bets made on this specific prediction that U.S. military action against Iran would occur the next day. Those bets paid off to the tune of over $100,000 at a minimum for each of the individuals who placed those bets. Most of those accounts were set up on the day that they made those bets. It seems pretty clear what happened. People inside the White House or very close to the White House with knowledge of the attack that was imminent cashed in. That is fundamentally corrupt, and it is frankly stunning to people that it is legal, that it is allowed for these prediction markets to allow for bets to be made on such consequential questions like war and peace. And so our legislation is pretty simple. It simply says that these markets cannot allow people to make bets on government decision-making and, frankly, on other instances where there is one single individual who controls and knows the outcome of a market. I'll give you another example, much more benign, but still fundamentally corrupt. You can place bets today based upon what words a particular politician or celebrity will say in public remarks. Well, of course, there's one person who knows the answer to that question, the person making the speech. And there's a series of people around that individual who know the answer as well. So when people know how a bet is going to play out, it's an easy opportunity for them to make money. But these markets make it seem as if these predictions are on the level. They are not. And so gullible consumers get conned into placing bets on markets where the outcome is knowable, where they are essentially bound to lose. So I'm glad that we are able to come together, House and the Senate, and introduce this legislation. I think it's long overdue and urgent. Urgent because these markets are exploding. Urgent because the Trump administration is clearly making money off of these markets. Urgent because the harm isn't just to consumers, it's to every single citizen. Because think about what's happening inside the Situation Room. There are likely people who have placed bets on whether the United States is going to take a particular military action overseas. And they are, inside Trump's White House, giving advice to the president, not based on what's best for national security, but based upon what will make them money. That's unforgivable. And it's why we need to pass this legislation now. Finally, before I turn it over to Greg, let me just sort of step back for a second, and ask a question. What happens to us spiritually when every moral question in this country just becomes a market? Right? Don't we lose something? Don't we rot a little bit inside when the question of famine in Gaza isn't a question of what's right and what's wrong, but whether you can make money or lose money? I think it's really important that there are certain matters that are not monetized by prediction markets, whether that be humanitarian disaster overseas or the fundamental moral question of whether we go to war or not. Those heavy, weighty public policy questions, steeped in questions of morality, become empty and corrupted if they just become a money-making opportunity for people. So I'm glad to be here introducing this legislation. I hope that there'll be bipartisan support. Obviously, there's a flurry of these bills being introduced right now because the activity is ramped up so quickly. But in talking to my Republican colleagues, many of them see the grave danger here as well. And while they might be a little bit slower to introduce these bills, I do think there's an opportunity for us to be able to work together here. At least I hope so. So let me turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Chris. I really want to thank Senator Murphy for his really important leadership on an issue that becomes more urgent by the day. Right now, America is facing a corruption crisis. After promising to drain the swamp, Donald Trump has ushered in the most corrupt administration in American history. And across the political spectrum, Americans are fed up with a government that over and over and over again answers to the wealthy and well-connected instead of ordinary people. This bill is about cracking down on one of the most dangerous new venues for government corruption, and that's in prediction markets. On the day before the Iran war, 150 accounts placed highly unusual bets on Polymarket that the war would start the next day. 109 of those accounts made over $10,000 betting on the war. 16 made over $100,000, and one person made nearly $500,000. $500,000 from betting on the start of a war that has cost billions of taxpayer dollars, over a dozen lives of U.S. service members, and countless more civilians. While working class kids were getting sent to fight and die in the Middle East, others were cashing in, and they either got very lucky or they were privy to very secret inside information. I expect most Americans don't need a list of the reasons why this is wrong and dangerous, but let me give you just a few. We shouldn't live in a country where someone's sitting in the Situation Room making decisions about whether to invade or to bomb, decisions about war and peace, life and death, that those decisions could be driven by the fact that they have hundreds of thousands of dollars riding on the decision. We shouldn't live in a country where government officials or well-connected people can make money off of secret information that is supposed to be used in the public interest. And we shouldn't live in a country where a foreign power can guess what Donald Trump is going to do next by going to a betting market. While we don't know the names of the people who with insider information, correctly bet on the Iran war. We do know that, like with basically every other corruption story in Washington, D.C., that the Trump family is getting a cut. Donald Trump Jr. is an investor in Polymarket, a paid advisor to Kalshi, and he's starting to work on Truth Predict, the Trump's very own corruption machine in prediction markets. Needless to say, I don't think this administration is going to be cracking down on this form of corruption anytime soon, since they're cashing in on it. The potential for corruption in these markets goes well beyond wars, and so does our bill. No one would join a poker game where one player gets to know what's in every other player's hand. No one would sit at a craps table where one player gets to pick how the dice land. But that's how many prediction markets today work. From the Super Bowl halftime show to the length of a White House press conference, people are allowed to bet on events where someone knows and already controls the outcome. And when that happens, these markets become just another avenue for the powerful and well-connected to screw over everyone else. If you bet on who's performing at the Super Bowl halftime show and lose your money to someone who controlled the answer, you're getting ripped off. And the people at the very top are making money off of it. And that's wrong. The CEOs of this company have made clear that they want to go even further, to an America where the entire country is a casino and the rich and the powerful always win. Congress must act before we get there. I want to thank Senator Murphy again for his great leadership on this issue, and my House colleagues who are helping co-lead the bill with me, Gabe Amo and Yasmin Ansari. Thanks so much, and I'll turn it over to you, Chris, or to y'all for questions.
Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
It's pretty well documented what online gambling is doing to Americans' wallets, especially young men. So why limit this to corruption or manipulation? Why not just ban it outright?
So there are a number of different pieces of legislation that are being introduced as we speak. I hope that we will take a comprehensive look at the way that prediction markets are rigging our entire economy and government action. So I know there's legislation that will be introduced to restrict prediction markets in sports betting. Senator Merkley has legislation that would restrict the way that prediction markets can offer bets on elections. So I think there'll be a suite of pieces of legislation that will allow us to take a more comprehensive look. For my part, this bill doesn't cover the waterfront in terms of what is concerning in these markets, but this seems to be the most urgent problem right now because there is such obvious deep corruption happening inside this White House. And as Greg pointed out, this White House and the friends and family of the president are clearly making a mint off of these corrupt prediction markets.
Yeah, we can debate at length how we handle prediction markets generally, but at a minimum, shouldn't we be able to agree that somebody shouldn't be able to place 17 bets on the halftime show and win all of them? I mean, to me, that seems like a place where Democrats, Republicans, everybody can come together and say, that's nuts. So we should, at a minimum, be able to pass my bill here with Senator Murphy.
Setting aside the government actions portion of this, I mean, as you both know, that this would also ban betting on things like the Oscars, Super Bowl halftime show. Obviously, there are insider trading risks there that you spoke about, but also, I mean, these sorts of things are growing very much in popularity. A lot of Americans like placing these bets. I'm just curious if you wonder, or are you worried at all about ending up on the wrong side of public opinion by going after those things?
Well, you know, I'll let you say a version of what we were talking about.
Murphy's core argument is simple. These markets create incentives that don't just exploit information, they might distort decisions. If the outcome of a bet is controlled by one person or a small circle with advanced knowledge, then the House isn't a casino. The House is the federal government. And when the bet is, will America strike Iran tomorrow, the stakes aren't money. The stakes are lives. Now here's where Washington escalates this from internet rumor to legislation. Murphy and Kassar aren't just calling for investigations. They introduced a bill to ban betting on war, terrorism, assassination, and other government actions, plus markets where insiders can know or control the outcome. They're saying, this isn't forecasting. It's a rigged game with a national security price tag. Kassar's allegation goes further. He argues the people with the biggest edge in these markets aren't everyday bettors. They're the powerful and well-connected. And he points a finger at something politically explosive. He says the Trump ecosystem is positioned to profit from the same prediction market boom lawmakers are trying to regulate. This is the part that's easy to miss. Murphy isn't only arguing these markets are gross. He's arguing they're structurally vulnerable because a speechwriter, a producer, a campaign staffer, a government aide can know the outcome before the public. That turns prediction markets into something closer to legalized insider trading, especially when the subject is government action. Here's what we can say with certainty. The bets happened, the timing raised alarms, and lawmakers are now trying to redraw the line between markets and moral hazard. Snopes confirms specific new accounts profited, while also stressing we don't yet know who was behind them. Murphy and Kassar say that uncertainty is exactly the problem. In a system like this, you might never know whether you're watching a crowd prediction or a classified leak being monetized in real time. The Bets Off Act is their attempt to stop one future headline, a war decision shaped, directly or indirectly, by someone's open position on a betting app. Because if we normalize markets on death, on terror, on war, we're not just trading contracts. We're trading away trust.